Who Am I by Pale Waves. Can you give us the specs on that?
Pale Waves, Who Am I? It is 11 songs, 33 minutes long.
Yes, Pale Waves is a band from the Dirty Hit and Associates.
The Dirty Hit and Associates of just pumping out records.
Pumping out really interesting, subvertive indie music.
I mean, you have the Japanese House, B2B, the 1975, Pale Waves, No Rome.
Yes.
So many more, too.
Yes, from this family, Sean has introduced me, and that was on the podcast to them. And so this is Pale Waves' sophomore project?
Yes, because we reviewed... I don't remember if we reviewed it or if I brought it
Music
up.
recommendations.
I think it was a recommendation of My Mind Makes Noises for their first album because I thought it was a solid indie album. I thought the only issues I had was that it could feel bland at times for me when I listened to it, especially now listening to it again this past year and now leading up to this album because I wanted to see what they would do with this one. I definitely still have the same complaints on it, but I did like it. And the one thing with Who Am I is they definitely pushed their sound forward for sure. They definitely changed it up, but it's not too similar to their first album at all, which is good. There's still some complaints I have on that, but more on that later. I want to hear what you're gonna say on this.
I like the beginning of the album for sure. The way it starts with Change, it matches the album cover aesthetic of like late '90s, almost Blur. Like Third Eye Blind, Blur kind of like not quite punk, but like depressy grunge rock. That's like almost poppy. In that way, Pale Waves hits that to a T, but it's really modern for 2020 or 2021.
Yeah. Going on to like more of the middle album might be the only like problems I'll have with it. So like Wish You Were Here, I felt like going back into my Jingle review early in the podcast, I feel like that's too throwbacky to the 90s sound for that one track, where I thought it's one of those things where I had my issues with indie of maybe it's a little too much of a throwback and I want a little bit more sound. But the rest going after that song, they get more into really diving into themselves because you have Tomorrow right after Wish You Were Here. Fantastic, fun indie track. It's fast, blowing up. I forget the lead vocalist. I think her name is Heather. I think. Don't quote me, boy. If I haven't said shit. That her voice is now maturing a lot more. It's like getting into it and it's sounding very, very good now. And that middle part of the album after Wish You Were Here, I started to really enjoy it now. Because I got worried there for a second. I go, okay, they're just going to do the more of that throwbacky-ish sound, but not put too much of their own spin on it. But now they're starting to develop more into the album.
I think more, I'm a little bit more harsher in my thing where there were, like, Change was a good note where it seemed like they're going to do the sound and explore it more, but then Fall to Pieces sounded like Change too. And then even You Don't Own Me, which is the song after Tomorrow, sounds a little bit too similar to even Tomorrow, and it's like grungy thing it's going for, where like I would like Tomorrow on its own, but in the context of an album, it's like they didn't know how to explore taking that kind of sound beyond just like throwing in some more of like the mid-tens bliss points in a way. Yeah. And so like, it's almost like I wanted, each song felt like it had a double right next to it almost to me.
Yeah. And that's something that I noticed too. They would have because then you have I Just Needed You, which is probably my favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
Because that one, it's then getting more, really diving into them as a band and as a group and saying, okay, what does Pale Waves sound like? This is a track that sounds like Pale Waves. Going back to their debut album and now going to their second album, fantastic sound. This is something that I want them more to do of, having all of their influences and everything, put it into one track, but then again, pushing forward as we always like to do on Audioface. And the end of the album slows it down a little bit. You have more like acoustic pieces and stuff.
Run 2 isn't as slow, but it reminds me kind of like of I call it Vans Warped Tour rock.
Vans Warped.
But you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like sort of like My Chemical Romance, like rock bands of that time and that period, but in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Because there's two ways you could do that. You could do it in the MCR way, which is the good way, or you can do it in a extremely super angsty teenage band that only like lasts for 3 months because the singer and the bassist step with each other while the guitarist is there like, hey, what about me then? And then they broke up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know that one band in high school.
Yeah. They definitely did it in a good way here, and it's that thing where they have the potential to take these sounds and make it sound good.
Yeah,
It needs to.
There's still some refining they need to do. They are getting closer there. They are, because their first album, I like looking back on it, there is a lot of things I would like to improve upon, and this is a step in the right direction. There's still more I want from them because now they're really showing their talent. They're showing, wow, they can make decent music now. But it's okay. It's almost like the B2B where, okay, what do you do now? Because also, this is a pretty short, I would consider this a drop because it's 33 minutes.
11 songs. Yeah.
11 songs. So it's one of those where now, if you have a little bit longer of an album, because I know My Mind Makes Noises was a long album. Yeah, it was a 14 song, 15 minutes long. So now, if you make another LP, really, what sound do you want to do?
It has to be something. Yeah, they have to make a decision and go to it because they can't do much more of this slight tweaking off of old things. Forever.
Yeah, they have to push forward and experiment and do and see where do they want their sound to be. So they're at a crossroads basically of, okay, you've made 2 decent albums. There's still some work and stuff you have to do, but where do you go from here? So we just need to see where they go. But step in the right direction. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's all right. I think there's some songs that stick out. But yeah, it's probably that has that the growing pains of
and by the way, Who Am I? Very, very good closing track, by the way. Yeah. Slowing down, and that's one of the strongest tracks on the album too, is Who Am I?
So I would definitely say that as well.
And going on that, I would love more of this sound because this is something that you don't hear too many influences. This just sounds like Pale Waves. That's it, and that's what you want. So yeah, more of that.
Arbitrary scale this week. Senate vote margins without budget reconciliation, so filibuster is required. I give this a 62 out of 100.
62. Yeah, I was going to say 61. Like, you just passed, so the country's going to be up at arms, like how it is here. And, but legally, you gotta... Bye-bye.
Those 2 senators might not be reelected.
No, they're definitely not going to be reelected.
Yeah, they just lost their careers over that vote.
But they're like, my conscience is good.
Yeah, they stuck their necks out in that.
Exactly.